No Man's Sky is probably one of the most controversial games that I'm covering so far this year, and probably through the end of the year. The hype build for this was massive, absolutely massive. And as you guys have seen, all of the controversy around what was said and what was delivered is also huge. Now, before we get into the BFF report, because it's pretty long, I want you guys to know that there is a spoiler pretty much right near the beginning. I basically spoiled the end of the game. But trust me, you're not missing anything, all right? You might even thank me for spoiling it for you. All right, so fair warning, let's get started. No Man's Sky is not what we were told it was going to be, but that doesn't mean it's a bad game. But it's definitely not worth $60. But it doesn't matter, we'll pre-order these things anyways. But it's a small dev team, we should probably give them the love. No! Don't you see? Everything I just said was true. Everything. It is not what we were promised. It is not a bad game. It's not worth $60. We will continue to pre-order these things no matter what. And lastly, it is a small dev team, which all wraps back around to the point that we should have fucking known. And some of us did. We had questions. We wanted to know what there was to do. You could do whatever you want. Okay, what is that? You could explore one of the 18 quintillion planets. Okay, and then what? When we explore them, what are we doing? Turns out there's a quintillion different ways you can do 5 fucking things. I expressed my concern on don't get your hopes up a day before the PC launch. And if I had 20 crafted worlds and each one was completely unique and had a completely different set of monsters or whatever, maybe that would be fulfilling enough, because now I'm not gonna land on a planet and have some, shitty looking, spore reject monster flying around. It's like, okay, so there's no rules. So now it's like, there is no love put into anything. It's just maths. Oh, I got this crazy planet, man. Some developer, no, he didn't. Math. Yeah. It was just math. From the placement of outposts, to the generation of worlds, to the climates, to all that stuff, even down to the aliens, the experiences you have with them, nothing is handcrafted. And it's obvious. Everything looks like the game took a box full of wet gummy bears, smashed it with a hydraulic press, and said, this one will be an herbivore. Now, before we dive into gameplay, because you could tell by the timeline, we have a lot of stuff to talk about for the gameplay. The soundtrack to this game, produced by 65 Days of Static, is amazing. If you were not a fan of 65 Days of Static before, you probably are now. This is probably the best soundtrack that I've heard all year. It's very unfortunate that I was attached to such a mediocre game. Now, here's how the game starts things off. You have a crashed ship, and you need to find resources in order to repair it. You don't know why your ship has crashed. You don't know what you're doing on this planet. There is a being here, a thing that you could talk to that says, hey, I can guide you if you want. And then you could say, nah, or sure. And it'll provide you a path to the center of the universe where you'll find out that the end of the game sucks and everything that happens after the end of the game sucks. And not to spoil too much, but this guy right here, this is Neo Beowulf X. You can find him on YouTube if you'd like. I found this video when I was just kind of going around looking to see what the ending was from different people's perspectives to make sure that there wasn't some kind of secret ending or something I was missing. This is what happens after the end of the game. You go to New Game Plus, where you get to keep all of your stuff. It's all broken, of course, but all of your discoveries and everything are completely wiped. And you get a whole new universe, and it's just like starting all over again. But in this guy's case, because of RNG, he's getting his ass handed to him while he's in a cutscene. He almost dies while he's in a cutscene, waiting for the stupid music to stop playing and for it to look at the ship so he can jump back into the ship, and he barely makes it out alive. It's kind of hilarious, but that's what happens when your entire game is based off of maths. So you're on this planet and you need to find resources. The way you collect resources is fairly simple. You go and you take your laser beam mining tool and you shoot at something until you get the resource from it. And then it goes into your backpack that has very few slots left. And the way inventory works in this game, it's just 100% slot based. It's not weight based, it's not quantity based, it's slot based. So you, as a person, your exosuit can carry just as much, if not more, than your ship can, which makes no sense, but that's fine. We'll let that slide. You collect all the things that you can possibly get into your tiny little bag, and then you transfer it back to your ship, which you can do remotely. You can transfer things remotely to your ship, no problem. That's great. If you run low on shields or health or any other thing that's happening where you might die, right? Any survivalist aspects that might impact your health, you can just jump back into the ship and it'll recharge you. So as long as you stay near your ship, there is like really zero threat to you dying. There's no way you're gonna die. As a matter of fact, the only time I actually felt any sense of urgency in this game at all is when I stumbled across, because again, RNG, I stumbled across a planet that had extreme weather conditions. And the entire thing was just toxic, and there was toxicity everywhere. So I was constantly losing armor plating. I had to build a secondary armor, a shield, in order to allow me to even venture more than maybe 100 yards or something from my ship because of how toxic it was. Now, the way that it works, whenever you have a storm, or whenever you have toxic or any kind of environmental hazard, pretty much 99% of the time, in that I've not found a way to, or a reason why this doesn't work, but anytime you run into an issue with the atmosphere, you could just go into a cave and it balances everything out, and it's just like being in your ship minus some of the regen. But that's it. It's super easy to survive. And again, the only time I ever had issues was, or any sense of urgency, was when I was on this toxic planet, to the point where I've spent like 5 hours out of the 20 something hours that I've played on this one planet alone, because I wanted to feel like there was some kind of challenge to playing this game. Speaking of atmospheric conditions, I found these guys flying around on one of the planets. Now, you would think, oh, you know, every planet's gonna be a little bit different, the atmosphere's gonna be different, the density, the air pressure, the gravity, all the good stuff. It's gonna be different, right? That's what you would assume. So when you see something like this, you're like, yeah, that's cool. On this alien planet, these alien weird seascape eel hybrid things actually fly. That makes perfect sense. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make any sense why they're able to fly and propel themselves through the air, create the drag they need in order to continue moving, you know, maneuvering and whatnot, just like they would in the water. Unfortunately, in the air, that doesn't make any sense unless I too am impacted by this, but that's not the case. As I'm walking around, I don't feel like when I jump off a cliff or something, or when I use my jetpack to propel myself through the air, I don't feel like there's any other pressure. I'm not moving slower. I'm not staying up in the air longer, that was kind of an iffy thing. But I'm still not seeing any kind of impact on any of the particles that I'm creating or any of the other monsters that are moving around. Everything's moving around so freely, myself included, exactly the same as it is on other planets. And that also brings me to gravity. Every single planet, regardless of size and its proximity to other planets, have the exact same gravity. That just blows my mind. It just doesn't make any sense. So what it boils down to is that each planet only offers variations on 5 different things. 1, obviously the random ass spore type creatures and plant life. 2, terrain type, unless it's desert or tundra. Nobody's reported any cool, flat, dune-like planets anywhere, which is really odd. 3, atmospheric hazards, but not, you know, things that would typically be considered part of your atmospheric and planetary conditions, which is air pressure and gravity. Really weird. 4, how sensitive these sentinels are. Some planets they're chill, and others they've got full rage bar syndrome. And 5, which Instagram filter the game randomly selected for you for this planet. Now, the discoverables on each planet are pretty much the same as well. You see the trend here? You have these points of interest that when you go and discover one, you unlocks another, and then another. It doesn't really unlock, you just get within range to be able to see another one. This can actually lead to hours and hours of exploration, which can actually be quite fun, assuming the planet you're on is a fun one, which usually means that there's hazards or something that keeps you moving. Otherwise, it's just a walking simulator. You have an outpost with or without a friendly alien. You have a beacon and maybe some supplies. You have suit upgrades. You have crashed ships that you'll sometimes stumble across, or that's pretty much it. There are these stones that are scattered throughout the game that will teach you words that you can, so you can better communicate with the alien creatures, which really does help. You need to collect a lot of stones, though, because they have a lot of different variations of things that they'll say. Therefore, you need to collect a lot of stones, because each stone only gives you one word. Sometimes you'll find a cluster of stones that'll give you a number of words. But the one thing that the game is missing is any kind of actual story, or stories about the backstory of anything, and literally anything. Because I guess the game is so RNG, it gives you just a very kind of a vague overview, and little kind of bits about a large kind of story, or not even a story. It's hard to call it a story. See, in Mass Effect, let's go there. In Mass Effect, whenever you are exploring a planet or you're exploring something, you come across some kind of codex or something, you usually get a story about something that happened. All right, a situation, a battle, anything, something that happened prior to your time. It's a codex piece, it's a lore piece that tells you an interesting story. In this case, every story piece that I'm getting is just telling me a little bit about the Gek people as a whole, prior to my existence, prior to now, whatever the previous story was, maybe the other dimension. I have no idea. But you don't really get anything that's like the battle of whatever. You don't get that kind of stuff. And it sucks because I want to become invested in these. I'm learning these guys, their language. Let me learn more about them. I want to learn individual fucking stories about cool shit that these guys did back in the day. Now, these ships that you're given, they're all pretty much the same. There are different types and categories. You have varying health and whatnot. So whenever you go to space, you get to space combat. You don't have to necessarily worry about it, but you have to worry about health of your ship on the planet itself. It is completely impervious to any kind of hazards. You can't even wreck it. I've tried so many times to crash into anything. I just can't do it. Whenever you see somebody land in No Man's Sky, including these videos here, all these landings, they're all automated. Like, you basically fly over somewhere and you hit the land button and it'll autopilot its way down and it'll land. Again, removing another element that could have been relatively treacherous, right? You can't even land your own ship. It's ridiculous. Let's say you're running around on a planet, you come across another ship. It's crashed, of course, right? It's damaged, but maybe it has, an additional slot. Now, inventory slots, as I mentioned before, are extremely valuable in this game, just extremely valuable in the game. So you want this ship. You don't care what it looks like, as long as it has +1 slot, you want it. You're gonna spend some resources in order to repair it. You can't. This is oh man, this is a frustrating thing that I've actually come across a couple times. Whenever you find a ship, a crashed ship, you're like, okay, I need some resources. I might need to actually leave the planet to go get a specific thing because I don't have a blueprint to build something. I will come back and get this ship the second I go get whatever. You cannot set a custom waypoint unless it is an actual outpost or whatever. But you can't set it on this crash. I can't say this random ass point on a planet, I'm going to put out a big ass flag. So when I fly off the planet, I'll know to come back here. I left thinking that maybe I could shoot a back azimuth to these two other points, a beacon and something else, another outpost that was between it and myself, and the crash ship. I thought, shoot a back azimuth. I can figure out where I'm at, and then I could land here and find it again. Never found that ship again. It was just gone. It is because they wouldn't let me put down stupid fucking waypoints. This is the future. I should be able to say, boop, coordinate locked. Great, leaving the planet, getting some resources. I'll be right back. You can't do it. So where was I? Oh, right. So let's say you find this ship. It has +1 inventory slots. What do you do? Well, the process of moving everything over is a bit of a pain in the ass. Here's how it works. You have a ship that has a bunch of resources and stuff on it, and now you have this new ship that has basically a bunch of broken crap on it that you want to salvage this. Now, I could choose to break it down if I want to, or I could get the resources needed in order to repair these things and then go about my merry way in my brand new ship. So what I do is I move all the contents I can from original ship to new ship. And then you make all the necessary repairs you need on the new ship. And let's say, oh, well, I have a bunch of upgrades on the old ship here. I want to move those over. Not necessarily the upgrades themselves, but break them down, get the resources and move them over. So you go back to the old ship, you claim old ship again, and then you can grab all the items and then move them back over to the new ship. It's freaking ridiculous. Like all of the inventory management you have to do in the process. The thing I wanted to do was really just get all the stuff from the old ship to the new ship. Just move all the crap over. But I have to claim it, I have to compare, I have to do all this stuff. And it's nonsense. It's complete and utter nonsense. Now that's one way to get a ship. The other way is to just simply buy them. You could just walk up to one at a trading post or in a space station, and you could just talk to the dude, and you make an offer on it, and that's it. The more expensive, or the more slots you have on the ship, the more expensive it is. So if you find something that has like 40 inventory slots, it's probably going to cost like 40 million credits. So these credits, this is the unit of currency. I call it units, actually. This is the currency that exists in No Man's Sky, and it's universal. You can use it anywhere. You can use it on their galactic network trade stations or whatever, which they have nodes set up on planets and in all the space stations. And you can buy and sell items kind of like you can in like Rebel Galaxy or like in Elite. You can kind of play the market a little bit. The thing is, every single item that you could get at a plus minus usually is very, very incremental. It's just negligible. It's like plus 5%, minus 5%. And even if you found something that was like plus or minus 100%, where you could buy high and sell low, or sorry, buy low and sell high, it still is something that maybe they only have like 3 or 4 of. And so it isn't necessarily worth even the inventory slot to do that. what I found to actually be the best way to make money on a per inventory slot basis is to farm emerald. Now, I found several planets in my 20-something hours in No Man's Sky that have tons of emerald. And if it wasn't for the fact that I was streaming the game, I didn't want to completely bore the viewers and honestly bore myself to death, I would just stay on one single planet, one of these emerald-rich planets, and just farm them all day. Just freaking farm them non-stop. And I would be rich beyond my wildest dreams. I would find the unit cap and have all the currency I could possibly ever want, buy the most expensive crazy-ass ship, and then be set for life. Now, it would take me some time, but so would doing it any other way. The only difference doing it any other way is that it's slower, and also there's a lot of RNG involved. You can attack freighter ships that show up in these open space environments. You can attack these freighter ships, but you don't know what they're going to drop. Right? You can salvage old ships, but that's just like minimal resources. And still, on a per slot basis, nothing's going to be emerald right now. One stack of this emerald material will yield hundreds of thousands of units. And when you're on a planet where they are everywhere, you just basically ditch everything else. It's not worth it to get anything else, to farm any other material when you just need this. You just need this stuff and enough fuel to get to the station and back. That's pretty much it. Or to the nearest galactic, trade network or whatever node that might be at the nearest outpost. Whatever. Now, you've spent plenty of time on this planet. You have your ship. You have tons of emerald in your bags, and you're ready to go. Before you leave, you want to go ahead and submit everything you've discovered on that planet and upload it because it's going to just earn you extra credits. You want to do this all the time. You just basically hit whatever key it is to scan, right? And then scan whatever item it is. You'll discover it somehow, even though there's plenty of population on every one of these planets. You're the one discovering it for the first time, and then you'll upload. You can name it if you want to, but honestly, you're discovering so much stuff, you will run out of names. No matter what you do, you will find a way to run out. That's why all the names, everything that they give automatically look ridiculous, because even they couldn't come up with a system. They just randomized the hell out of it, slap a bunch of letters together. Ta-da, that's a word in space in the future or whatever. So you upload all that stuff and you get a bunch of bonus credits depending on how much stuff you collected or if you've pretty much aced the entire planet. And then you leave. Now we go to space. The final disappointment. No, but really, it's kind of a disappointment. There's only a couple things you can really do in space, kind of like on the planets. Once the second you leave the atmosphere, which the entire thing is beautiful, right? You're gonna experience just insane amounts of popping of just like an asteroid belt that just appears right in front of your face as you're boosting through. You're probably gonna clip a couple of them, which is fine. Your ship could take a little bit of damage. You'll be all right. But these things are here, so close to the planet's gravitational pull, or with basically well within it, but not falling. They're here because it's a game. You might run out of fuel, and then you're gonna have to farm these things and get fuel. That's why they put them all over the place. There's another thing that makes the game easy, basically. So you're gonna go past this, and then you have options. You can either you go to another planet, or you could go to a space station, or you can interact with freighters, or you can get jumped by a bunch of rebel scum. I don't know, bunch of bad guys that come out of nowhere and they'll jump you, which is actually kind of interesting because space combat is really, really, really odd. Targeting is pretty much automatic. As long as you get them relatively within the center of the screen for a moment, you'll see the reticule will show up on them, then you just basically fire a bunch of times and just keep them there, and that's pretty much it. So combat doesn't really necessarily require a lot of skill, and you can augment your actual weapons to make them stronger if you want, chain a bunch of these things together, and then you could go and just basically one-shot them if you want to, but you're never really gonna get into any fights, so I don't really see what the problem is. And when you do get into a fight, you're either getting your ass completely handed to you, or you're basically just, you're sitting there reloading your shields constantly. Yes. When your shields get low, you actually have to pop open the damn menu to load more resources into the shields, which is really, again, odd. Just odd. And that's it. There is nothing else to space combat. You can choose to engage with a freighter to get the resources if you want to. You can choose to not get involved in an ongoing fight that's happening. So you warp into an area and there's a bunch of people fighting. You can kind of fly right through if you want to, or you can take sides and shoot one guy and then basically they all turn against you and you just go nuts. But there's really not a whole lot to combat other than that. There's no moving shields power around like the aft or port or whatever. There's no real like intership management or anything. You just basically get in the center somewhere, get it kind of close, fire a couple times, reload shields, done. And lastly, system-to-system travel. This is probably one of the biggest disappointments for me, because they sold the game on the whole, yeah, you could point in one direction and travel, and you go to all these different planets and all that stuff. That's not necessarily true, because every individual system is really just a localized instance of 3 to 5 planets that are way too close together for physics to allow, but fine. And also no sun or star or anything that you can actually fly into or fly close to or fly around. It just doesn't work that way. And so really you just move from one point that has 3 to 5 planets to another point that has 3 to 5 planets. And that's all you're doing, from instance to instance, from zone to zone. That's it. And mind you, inside of each of these instances, because of the way the game allows you to stream data and move from one point to another and generate an entire new terrain or planet or whatever as you're landing on it, that is a miracle in technology. That is amazing. There's zero soul or zero heart into it, but that's fine. Technology-wise, it is amazing. We're doing all this stuff within these localized clusters that they've created for these systems, and then you move on to the next one and you do the same thing again. Now you're probably thinking, wow, Mike B hates this game. No, I don't hate it. Like I said at the beginning, it's not a bad game. It's just not a good one. And that's the biggest problem, is that you see the potential in a game like this. Like, never mind all the potential that everybody felt that they were sold on, but just the fact that simple things, like when I'm on this planet and it's teeming with life, I would feel like, hey, there's this big ass crazy dinosaur that just went right through it. Okay, well, it doesn't really exist. Or when I shoot something with my mining laser and it just stares at me like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And it just dies. Like, there's no animation showing that it's taking any kind of damage. It just doesn't make any sense. From a fundamental, from the basics, absolute basics in gaming interaction between the player and the environment, they miss the mark on these things. I still enjoy going and finding more more planets and finding more Instagram filters and exploring and pushing the RNG and seeing what other things I come up with. I really did enjoy the last 5 hours of my life playing this game when I was on the toxic planet, because I was in danger constantly and constantly struggling to find more materials in order to keep myself alive and have to keep running back to the ship. And it was treacherous. And then the storms would come in and it would really push me to find shelter. And then in shelter, usually there's a bunch of aggressive animals there. I have to take care of them too. So there are a number of redeeming qualities to No Man's Sky, but the problem is there's disappointment attached to each one of them. Thank you so much for watching. I know it was a really long one. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can leave them in the comments below. I will read them. I may not respond to all of them, but I will definitely read all of them. If you guys like the video, please like, favorite, subscribe. And if you guys want to support this video, you guys have seen the Patreon stuff all over the place. Right here at the very end, it's going to say it again. But Patreon really does power all of this stuff. So everybody that's there that's helping, even if it's like $1, $5, whatever, it definitely helps a great deal. And if you go in for the $5 tier, I'm now selling you on the whole thing, right? If you go in for the $5 tier, act now, you guys actually get access to Discord. And Discord is kind of where all the action happens. We actually built up a pretty good community there, pretty well moderated, and there are no dicks, which is great. So that's it. My name is Mike B, aka Fony. This is the BFF Report, No Man's Sky. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys later. Bye.